Hello and welcome to the MyHeritage webinar series. I'm Miriam Pierre-Louis, your host, broadcasting to you live from Eastern Massachusetts. Today we have Gal Zrihen, who is with us live in Israel for her class, New Developments of MyHeritage DNA. Thanks to Gal and thanks to the over 1,200 of you for registering for today's live webinar. So wherever and whenever you are, glad to have you with us. And now to introduce our speaker. Gal Zrihen is a product manager responsible for MyHeritage DNA products. She leads a talented team of developers, QA engineers, and designer. The team creates and optimizes DNA users' entire journey, from ordering a DNA kit to making the most of their DNA results for genealogical research with MyHeritage's constantly growing suite of features. Please put your virtual hands together. And let's give Gal Zrihen a nice, warm webinar welcome. Gal, how are you? Welcome to the webinar.
Hi, Marianne. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm excited for this topic because I love DNA. So I can't wait to hear about the new developments. It's all yours, Gal.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm very excited to be here today. And I'm going to talk about the newest development, tools, and features that will help you in your genetic genealogy research on MyHeritage. So without further ado, let's start. And let's just, I'll give a quick overview on what I'm going to cover today. So I'm going to talk about researching with genetic genealogy and specifically with your DNA matches results. I'm also going to talk about what can you get with your DNA matches after you get your DNA kit results, and how you can find the relationship and answer your research question with them using shared DNA data. I'm also going to show you our very new tool for relationship prediction, the CM Explainer, and walk you through it and how you can use it. And last but not least, I'm going to show you other DNA research tools available on MyHeritage and how you can use them as well. So let's start. So DNA matches. After you get your DNA results on MyHeritage, you can see your ethnicity estimate results, but we have also DNA matches. And DNA matches are useful things, useful tools or like data or information to know more about your family and to answer your research questions. Now, the more DNA matches is the merrier. We love DNA matches. When you have more of them, you have more data to use and to analyze and to find your relative that you didn't know before. And when you get your DNA matches, it comes with a lot of information about these people. It's not just about the quality of the DNA that you share, but it's also other things like the surnames that you share or the ethnicities or the genetic groups that you share. But it's also comes down to the things that you don't share that can help you understand more about the matches. So, regarding matches and genetic genealogy research, and it's always good to have a clear goal or question in mind when doing your research work. And each one of us can have different goals when looking or working with DNA, and it can be like breaking a brick wall in my family tree. I have someone in my family tree that I don't know, and I want to pinpoint him or her and find more information about them. Other people can have a different research goal, like finding and researching a specific ancestor or ancestral couple. And it sometimes can be just finding and connecting with relatives that we didn't know before. So there can be a lot of different goals. But when you look at DNA matches in specific, you have the questions that you want to answer that will help you. So when you find your DNA match, you usually ask, who is this person? How is he related to me, or are they related to me? And through whom? Who is our common ancestor? And that's why we're here, because MyHeritage have a lot of types of tools to help you answer these questions. And if we can divide them by two types of tools that relying on the genetic data and those that are relying on the genealogical data. And these tools and features provide you the information needed. And they all are available through all of your matches. So, for example, tools that are relying on genetic data can be shared DNA matches, chromosome browser, and auto clusters. And don't be afraid about these terms. I'm going to explain all of these features later on in this webinar. We have also shared ethnicities and genetic groups that can also provide us clues about these people. And the CM Expander, which is the new tool, which I'm going to cover just now. Now, there are also tools that are relying on genealogical data, and this is the data that comes from the family trees. It's not related to genetics, but it's a very important information. This can include shared ancestral surnames or shared ancestral places that are in the tree of the match, pedigree trees that you can view, smart matches, which are people in your family tree, in the DNA matches family tree, that we found to be similar and can probably the same people, and that you can add to your tree and get more information. And last but not least, the beautiful theory of family relativity that actually looks at your tree and other matches tree, and along with smart matches and record matches, find you the theory of how you can be related. So there are a lot of tools, but we're here to talk about DNA. So I want to talk about how we go from point A to B, from DNA to finding relationship. So let's say I have a match. In this case, Homer Simpson, which I always love to use his help when demonstrating our useful feature. And when looking at the DNA match card in the DNA matches list, I see a lot of information on each DNA match. First of all, I see this person name. I can also see his age and where is he from. Also, I can see the DNA match quality, which is the DNA information that we found. And we also can see the genealogical data that I mentioned before. So I can see if this person appears in a family tree. I can see if we have shared ancestral surnames, smart matches, places. All of this is highlighted for you in the DNA match card. So it helps you to understand if you have plenty of information to go and drill down this match. But again, we're here to talk about DNA. So what does it mean, DNA match quality? So when looking at Homer, I can see three important things here. I can see the shared DNA, which is the amount of DNA that I share with Homer and indicates how related are we. So I can see that manifested in percentages or either in centimorgan, which is a unit of measurement for amount of DNA, and I will shortly explain about it. I can also see how many shared segments do we have, and I can also see the largest segments that we share. All of these are important data points to help me understand my information. But it's still a data. We're trying to understand how to move from just data to insightful conclusions about this person. So let's explain a few terms. Shared DNA is the total length of DNA that is identical between you and another person, between me and Omer, for example. The centimorgan is actually a unit of genetic distance, and it's used to measure the amount of shared DNA that you have with the match. So you look at the shared DNA, and centimorgan is the unit of measurement that shows it. And shared DNA segments are actually pieces of the DNA that you and the DNA match share, and most likely inherited from a common ancestor. And these are also very useful, and later on I will show how you can use them. Fun fact about centimorgan, because it sometimes can be a bit misleading. So I wanted to show you where does it come from. So on the left side, you can see actually a chromosome, and you can see different DNA strains in the chromosome, which are expressed as genes. And it's interesting to know that a centimorgan is a proxy for genetic distance, but it's not actually measuring distance. It's actually a frequency measurement. 1 centimorgan actually means there is 1% chance to have a recombination. Now, what is a recombination? A recombination is where there is an exchange of genes between two different organisms, between two different people, and that leads to an offspring, which is a very fancy term to say that two people got together and had a baby. And recombination actually means that the genes from person A and the genes from person B created together a new person that has the genes from A and B. And the further apart the genes are, the recombination frequency is higher. So the more centimorgans that we share with a person means is further related to us. Also a fun fact, centimorgan actually was named in the honor of Thomas Hunt Morgan, who was a very known scientist that received a Nobel Prize on his work on how genes are arranged on the chromosome and how gene inheritance works. So centimorgans comes from the name Morgan. Okay, so now we talked about DNA and the amount of DNA that we share. Now let's see how it indicates us on a relationship with a person. So let's start with the 100% DNA. Let's start with myself. The 100% DNA actually represent the amount of DNA that I have in total. Now, 50% means that we share that with one of our parents or a child of ours. So we get 50% of our DNA from our mom and 50% of DNA from our dad. And we inherit 50% of our DNA to our offspring, to our child. So 50% represents either parents or child relationship. Now, 25%. Let's go down. So we share 25% with our grandmother, each of our grandmothers, and 25% with each of our grandfathers. But in terms of genetic, it's actually the same amount that we share also with a person that can be our uncle or aunt, or a person that can be our niece or nephew or grandchild. So if we look at the DNA information, at the genetic information, it indicates us on relationship. But there are relationships that they are genetically equivalent. The amount of DNA that we share with these people is the same, but the type of relationship is different. Let's continue and look at 12.5% of shared DNA. And in that case, it will be either one of our 8 great-grandparent or great-uncle or first cousin or grand-niece-nephew. So again, and if I move down to 6.25%, then it will go further away. So the first conclusion is that the amount of DNA that we share with a person indicates on the relationship types. And the second conclusion is that the more DNA that we share, the closer this person is to me. 6.25% means this person can be maybe our first cousin once removed, which is the cousin of our parent or the child of our first cousin. But 50% means that it can be either our child or one of our parents. Okay, so let's talk a bit about relationship types. And I love to use the Simpson family because they are very interesting, and that's actually a family tree that I've built based on the Simpsons. And let's look at Abraham Simpson. He is the father of Homer Simpson, the well-known Homer Simpson. And it's easy to understand relationship types when looking at family trees and ancestors. So during World War I, Abraham Simpson was stationed as a soldier at England, and there he met Edwina. Abraham and Edwina fell in love and had a daughter called Abby. Actually, Edwina had Abby, and Abraham didn't know about it. And then he returned to the States, and there he met Mona. And Mona and Abe also fell in love and had children, which are Homer and Herb. So, if we're looking at the relationship types, Homer and Herb are full siblings, obviously, because full means they share two common ancestors, Abraham and Mona. But if we look at Abby, Abby is the half-sister or half-sibling of Homer and Herb, because they share only one common ancestor, one parent, Abe. Now that was easy, But let's look one generation down at the children of Abby, Homer, and Herb. So Abby had Terry, Homer had Bart, and Herb has Martin. Now, Homer and Herb are full siblings, which means that Bart and Martin are first cousins, aka full first cousin. Why is that? Because they share two common ancestors. Bart and Martin share Abraham and Mona as their grandparents, as a couple. But if you look at Terry to Bart, then if Abby and Homer were half siblings, then Terry and Bart are half first cousin. Half indicates that people share only one common ancestor instead of two. And this is an example that demonstrates how it can happen. For example, when one ancestor had children from different spouses, and then these children will be half relatives. Now, why am I talking about half relationships? Because the shared DNA in half relationship is kind of tricky. So if you remembered before, I showed you that 25% of DNA we share with one of our grandparents, or our uncle, aunt, niece, nephew, grandchild. But in terms of genetic, and we call it genetically equivalent relationship, we can also share 25% with someone who is our half sibling. So there is another relationship type that comes into the equation. Now, if I know that I have a half siblings and I expect to get a match who is a half sibling, then everything is perfect. But what happens if I don't know? And what happens if this half relationship can be also first cousin or half first cousin or half second cousin? So we need to look at something else. We need to look at more data points. And this is the point where our science team gathered a lot of data points, a lot of information from MyHeritage, from MyHeritage family trees. And they actually looked at the age difference, at the average age difference in each type of relationship. So we look at people that they know for sure, and we know that they are grandparents, grandchild. Someone is a grandparent to someone, or someone is a grandchild to someone. Same as for aunt and niece, and same for half siblings. Now, if we just look at the amount of shared DNA, they all look pretty much the same. We cannot tell. But once they draw the age difference, you can see there are differences in that. So someone who is my grandchild will be on average 60 years younger than me. But if someone will be my half sibling, it can be from 1 to 30 years of difference. So when we combined the data points of the amount of shared DNA and the age difference, and obviously there was a lot of mathematical process that used to combine probabilities and looked at the distributions, we found that we can provide different probabilities for different relationships based on these two things, based on the amount of shared DNA and the age difference, or your age and your match's age. And this is where the CM Explainer, the latest tool, came in. It actually fine-tunes the relationship prediction using ages. And there are a lot of predictors that use shared DNA amount, centimorgan. But once you take into the equation the ages of the two sides, you can fine-tune the probabilities. For example, here in the CM Explainer, you can see there is 1,700 shared DNA, 1,700 centimorgan. One person age, my age, is 33. My match's age is 41. In that case, it's most likely that this match will be my half sibling. And you can see the probability. And that's because we are closer at age. It's less likely that with an 8-year difference between us, it will be my uncle or aunt, because uncle or aunt is one generation above us. So the CM Explainer technology is first is integrated with your DNA matches results on MyHeritage. So for all of you that has a MyHeritage DNA kit and received your results, you can already see the CM explainer in works on your DNA matches. It will calculate the possible relationship and the probabilities for your matches. And you can see a lot of more information, which I'll show you in a sec. But also, if you don't have a MyHeritage kit, so there's the CM Explainer standalone tool, which is available on myheritage.com/CM. Or if you already have a MyHeritage account, you can access it from the DNA tools. So you don't have to have a MyHeritage account in order to access this tool. It's completely free and it's open for everyone to use. So you can enter the amount of centimorgan that you have with a match that you found somewhere else, enter your ages or just one age, and you will get the results as well. Okay, so now let's see how the CM Explainer works. So going back, and this is my real match, Samuel. And the image is not Samuel, obviously. This is my friend Homer. And I just got, I'm looking at the DNA match card of me and Samuel. And I'm seeing that the probable relationship is parents' first cousin. Now, for those of you who remember before that, we had first cousin once removed. First cousin once removed doesn't really indicate me if it's removed up, down. What does it mean even removed? So we simplify that. Using the ages, we can tell which generation this person is most likely and increase the probability. So we know that Samuel, which is in his 50s, is probably my parents' first cousin and not my first cousin child. Now, if I click on the probable relationship here, there will be a pop-up opened, and this is from the DNA matches list. And I can actually see the results the CM Explainer predicted. So the table below actually shows how Samuel might be related to me. So I can see that the highest probability, 80.5, that he is my parents' first cousin. There are also other possible relationships, but they are less likely. Now, I want to show you more things about the CM Explainer. So let's drill down into the Review DNA Match. When you click on that, you will get to the Review DNA Match page, which you have a lot of tools, features, and information there. But let's focus on the CM Explainer. So first of all, I can see the probable relationship, as we saw earlier in the DNA match. And below that, you can actually see the possible relationship with Samuel. So this is the table, and it shows me same as you saw earlier in the pop-up, the same relationship, the possible relationship. So I can see each possible relationship. I have a parent's first cousin, or half uncle, half first cousin, and second cousin. And I can actually see the probability, how likely that Samuel is my parents' first cousin, or how likely that Samuel is my half uncle. And the CM Explainer algorithm calculate that based on the amount of shared DNA and based on our ages, if available. Obviously, if one chooses to have his or her age privatized, then it will not be used. But the ages actually are able to rule out or reduce probability for certain relationship and increase others. And that helps you to pinpoint you to the relationship that you need to look at, and that will help you in your research question. How is this person related to me? Now we can see there are a couple of icons here next to the half uncle and half first cousin. We just wanted to indicate you, because sometimes it can be misleading when seeing half first cousin. It's not that clear, but we just tell you that Samuel might be your half first cousin. And remember before with the Simpson family, In that case, you would share only one most recent common ancestor, not a couple. And in that case, it will be a single grandparent. So for each relationship and each probability, we also show you the most recent common ancestor or most recent common ancestors, an ancestral couple. And if the relationship is full, like parents' first cousin, then the most recent common ancestor will be my great-grandparents. So I can know to focus on my great-grandparents' family line. And if Samuel will be my half-first cousin, for example, then we will share only one grandparent, not two, like we saw earlier. Now, you can see here there are more to see, and you can click on Show More Relationship plus Diagram. Now, once you do that, a diagram will be opened. And you can actually see below the table that we indicated how the relationship and probabilities were calculated. In that case of me and Samuel, the CM explainer calculated the relationship and probabilities based on the amount of DNA that we share and both of our ages. Now, even if there's only my age available and Samuel did not report his age or choose to privatize it, we can still enhance and fine-tune the results based on one side. And if there are no ages, we can still give you the predictions. But again, ages are important. So if you haven't put your ages on your MyHeritage DNA kit, on your account settings, do that now. That will give you more refined results in your DNA matches. Okay, so let's go down to the diagram that is shown below. So we saw the possible relationships that I have with Samuel, and this diagram actually shows you the same possible relationship, but it also helps you to visualize the paths to your DNA match. Now, this is not a family tree. This is actually an aid to show you how you are connected to your DNA match. So you can see here that I have the same possible relationship, the parent's first cousin and second cousin, and the parent's first cousin, which is the most probable relationship, is marked in bold. So you can see that the path, the purple lines go through that, and I can see that the common ancestor that I'm going through to my parents' first cousin will be my great-grandparents. Now, you can see on the right, there's a view. Now, this is kind of blank. I'm sorry for that. But this is a drop-down that you can actually choose to change the view of the table. What I did here is I changed the view from full relationships to half relationships. So we can actually choose on which type of relationship to focus on. Because some of us, as we said, I mean, some of us know that we are looking for half relationships. Some of us know, and we know that it's only a full relationship. So we can choose on which type of relationship to look at. So once I change it to half relationships, I can actually see these options on the tree. And you remember, half relationship means we only share one common ancestor. So if Samuel was my half uncle or aunt, in that case uncle, then we only have one grandparent. Now, again, it's blurred, but I can also see all types of relationships here. So in that view, I can actually see both the full relationship and the half relationship. These actually all the possible relationship that we found to have with Samuel, and they are shown on this diagram. Now, you can see the checkbox here says show probabilities for MRCA. Now, what does that mean? Well, there's different probabilities for different relationship types, but some relationship types might be different, like parents' first cousin and second cousin, which you can see here. But these two relationships, which are different, still means that I share with that person the same common ancestor or ancestor, great parents. So going back to our research questions, it sometimes interests us to know through whom we are related to this person. Sometimes it doesn't matter on which generation. Sometimes we want to focus on this part. And in that case, once you click on the checkbox of show probabilities for MRCA, we actually show you the overall probability that you and this DNA match share one of these specific most recent common ancestor. The most recent common ancestor is the closest shared ancestor of you and your DNA match. Now, each MRCA probability is determined by adding up the probabilities of all the possible relationships that leads to this MRCA. So the probability that me and Samuel share a great parents is 81.9, which is the sum of the probability that he can be my parents' first cousin or my second cousin. Okay, so we saw how the CM explainer works in DNA matches. But if your data is not on MyHeritage yet, you can still use the myheritage.com/CM, the CM explainer standalone tool. And you can also access it from your DNA tools. So if you go to your home screen, DNA tools, and click on CM explainer, you will be able to access it. And now I'm going to show you an example, as I mentioned before, how this tool can also help refine probabilities, even when you have only one age. Most of us know our age, I hope all of us, and sometimes we don't know our match's age. And it's okay, because it still can help us get better results. So in that case, for example, when I found someone that we share 195 centimorgan, and my age is 48, for example, then I will be able to see the possible relationship the CM explainer found. On the top, you see the most probable relationship in that case. You can also see the most probable, most recent common ancestor. So if a match is most likely my second cousin, it means that most likely we share a pair of great-grandparents. And the same as we saw earlier in the review match, you see all the table with the possible relationship, each relationship type, the probability of it, and what will be the most recent common ancestor in that case. And in the tool itself, again, you can scroll down and see the diagram of possible relationships. So you can see all the possible relationships, in that case, in full view. So the full relationships, the purple line demonstrate the path to each possible relationship and the probabilities. And again, you can click on the show probabilities for MRCA. You will be able to see the probability of each most recent common ancestor in that case. And you can also switch the view of the diagram from full to half relationship, and you can see the diagram shows you only possible half relationship in case that what interests you. Okay, so CM Explainer tool is a great tool that help pinpoints you to specific relationship to explore or to look at when the based on the amount of shared DNA and based on the ages. But there are special cases that it sometimes cannot be accurate, which are endogamy and pedigree collapse. Endogamy means that there are marriages within a specific group or community. An example for that are Ashkenazic Jews. This is a community or ethnicity groups that is known to have marriages inside this community. And what happens when there are marriages and offsprings inside the same community? It means the amount of shared DNA is higher. The same goes for marriages between individuals who share an ancestor. So, for example, when cousins have children, then there is more DNA that is shared between their offsprings. And in such cases, the amount of shared DNA between related individuals will be larger or possible to say, higher CM value than they expected for the same relationship. So a person might look closer. Now, it's kind of tricky to provide probabilities based on when there's endogamy or pedigree collapse. One, because it's not always known where the pedigree collapse occur, and it sometimes is not known what is the extent of the endogamy. But when known, it should be taken into account, and relationship prediction that are provided by the CM explainer should be further investigated. Now, I can tell you that there's the MyHeritage science team, because there are a lot of Ashkenazi Jews that are tested within MyHeritage. The MyHeritage science team is looking into finding a better solution for this population and to provide a better solution of relationship prediction when there's endogamy. Okay, so main takeaways regarding the CM explainer. So the CM explainer has an algorithm that takes into account the ages of a DNA match, not just the shared DNA. It able to assign a unique probability to every relationship type. It uses clear relationship, no more 1C, 1R, 2C, 3R, once removed, twice removed, where is the removed? We clearly say parents' first cousin or first cousin child. So it will be easier for you to understand where to look at. And this was able thanks to the use of ages. And it allows you to focus your research by relationship type. You can focus your research if you want to look at full relationship or half relationship or both. And it points you to the probable most recent common ancestor, because sometimes the research question is through whom we are related. As I promised, I want to show you how to work with other MyHeritage research tools. And I think one of the most important and useful tools to use are shared DNA matches. Shared DNA matches are people who have DNA in common with you and with another person that you are currently looking at. And I want to show you that with my own personal example with a match that I got. The names were altered here to protect the privacy of people. But this is a match. And me and Denise, my match, I see that we have a shared DNA of 76.9 centimorgan. It's not a lot. Now, I have the CM explainer was able to identify a couple of most probable relationship. Denise can be either my grandparent's second cousin, or my parents' third cousin, or my parents' second cousin. But in such low amounts of DNA, it's not easy to pinpoint to an exact relationship. But I have my shared DNA matches. Now, I looked at my shared DNA matches, and these are the people, again, that share DNA with me and with Denise as well. Now, one of the first things that I'm seeing here is my father, the first match that we are seeing here. So that's my first clue. I was able to identify that Denise is from my paternal side of the family. And this is why it's useful to also test older generation when you view other matches and you have shared matches, it helps you to understand from which family line or which family branch they come from. Now, I want you to see this button here on top of the shared DNA matches of sort by. Now, this sort by allows you to sort the shared DNA matches. In that case, me and Denise, we have 360 shared DNA matches. Okay, that's a lot. Now, I need to focus my research on something. Now, by default, when you look at your DNA matches, at the shared DNA matches list of each DNA match, they are sorted by the total shared DNA. Now, what's in purple here is basically to help understand how to look at shared DNA matches. When I'm looking at my dad, Aaron, then on the left side, it's indicated the amount of shared DNA with me. In that case, me and my dad, and let's look at the percentages to simplify it, we have 49.8% of shared DNA, around 50. And my dad share with the niece 1% of DNA. And when we combine these percentages, then this is the number that actually sorts the shared DNA matches list, the total shared DNA. Now, what I can do, I can choose to sort the shared DNA matches, but the shared DNA with you, with me. So let's click on that. And now you can see the matches here are changed. Now look at that. When I sort it by the amount of shared DNA with me, I can also see my brother, who also was tested, and my uncle. So now that helps me to understand there are more people that I haven't seen before. I had to scroll down, but that helps me to understand there are more people that are closer to me that also match with the niece. So I can use them to further understand my relationship with the niece. Now I can also choose to sort this list by the shared DNA with the niece. And once I do that, I see that the niece also have a daughter and the son, and the second cousin's son, and Nathaniel, her second cousin's son or first cousin grandson, that I also share DNA with. So why is that helpful? When I look at DNA matches that I don't know how they are related to me, and I'm trying to find more answers, it's sometimes helpful to look at other matches that are related to them, a daughter, a son, a first cousin, which is kind of close, and see how they are related to me, to work with other known matches. So use this sorting tool when looking at unknown DNA matches, and it will help you to understand more about them using other people. Okay, so let's see more DNA tools. And under DNA tools, we just covered the CM Explainer, which provides you relationship prediction based on centimorgan and ages. And we talked about shared DNA matches, which are available when reviewing DNA matches, when you click on the DNA match and go to the Review DNA Match page. But there are also other tools. Let's look at the Chromosome Browser. Chromosome Browser is a tool to use when looking at DNA segments. Now, basically, the Chromosome Browser gives you viewing of shared DNA segments between you and the multiple DNA matches. And these segments, as I mentioned before, can help to point you to a common ancestor. But what does it mean? How shared DNA segments can point to a common ancestor? So this is a nice chart that I like to use. So you can see here kind of a family tree. There's generation 0, which are ancestral couples, and generation 1, which are their children, and generation 2, which are the grandchildren. And in each one of them is an ancestral couple. Now let's focus on Annie the ancestor. This is Annie. These two represent Annie, and you see Annie here is represented by two chromosomes. But let's look at one of the chromosomes, one of her chromosomes, the orange one, and let's understand how the inheritance and the segments when we are looking at them help us to pinpoint to the common ancestor, to Annie. So let's look at the inheritance. So Annie has an orange chromosome, and you remember we said that her children should get around 50% of her DNA. In that case, her children got more of her orange chromosome. So when I'm looking at Annie's children, you can see the orange segments, and these are the pieces of Annie's chromosome. So these are segments they received. And if I'm going down to Annie's grandchildren, then you can see also the red chromosomes, the orange segments, sorry. They got from Annie the ancestor. And the same location of this orange chromosome that is shared between these two grandchildren is called IBD segment. IBD, or identity by descent, means that these are DNA segments that two or more, in that case we see two people, two individuals, they share due to the inheritance from a recent common ancestor. So these two cousins, for example, they have a segment, the orange one, the IBD segment, that they inherited from any. So this segment, the orange segment, can actually teach us that it links to any the ancestor. And this is why segments are helpful to look at and to understand, when you view DNA matches, to understand which is the common ancestor that you both share. Now, the shared DNA segments, when you go into the review DNA match page, you will have a chromosome browser. This is called the chromosome browser 1-to-1. Why? Because you can see that I'm looking at myself against someone else, 1-to-1. And I have each strands here represent the two chromosomes each one of us has, 1 to 22. Okay? The purple parts are the shared DNA segments. These are the shared DNA segments I have in common with my DNA match. In gray, it means these are the locations that we don't share. So you can use that to see which DNA segments are shared between you. But moreover, it can also, the shared DNA segments can be not just between two individuals. It can be more. So shared DNA segments that are shared between more than two people are called triangulated segments, from the word triangulation or triangle, because it involves three or more people. And triangulated segments are most likely inherited from the common ancestor of these people. So the chromosome browser, the tool, the one-to-many tool, which you can compare yourself to multiple matches, you can select up to 7, shows you the segments that all of you share. And when you look at other matches, then you know these segments are related to a certain ancestor that we all got these DNA segments from. So how does it work? Let's look at that. So, for example, I used in my tool, the chromosome browser, I added matches, Henry and Shmuel. And now this is how it looks. Now, you can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines there. Each one of them represents one of the 22 autosomal chromosomes. Now, what's the colored line, what you see in orange or red, represent the shared segment between this person and me. This is shared segment between two people, me and another one. So the red ones are the shared segments of me and Henry. The orange one are the shared segments of me and Shmuel. When you see the colored lines with bubbles, these are the triangulated segments. It means that these are shared segments of me, Shmuel, and Henry, the party of 3. So if we focus on chromosome 1, so the first line represents the shared DNA of me and Henry, and the bottom line represents the shared DNA of me and Shmuel. And if it's gray, it means these are the location of the chromosome we don't share. But if it's colored, it's the location of the chromosome we do share. But if we look, so in that case, for example, you don't see any bubbles. What it means there are no triangulated segments on chromosome 1 between me, Henry, and Shmuel. Each of us have shared DNA, but they are not triangulated. We don't have any location here that indicates on a common ancestor of all 3 of us. But if we focus on chromosome 3, as you saw earlier, this bubble indicates this DNA segment comes from a common ancestor of all the 3 of us. And if you hover these bubbles, after you add DNA matches, you can actually see the information about these segments, the exact location, the genomic position, what's the size of this segment. So that is your clue to understand the parts of the DNA, the location of the DNA that leads to this common ancestor, and who are the people that you share by a certain common ancestor. Now, it's sometimes helpful to go back to the shared DNA matches. Now, when you go and see your shared DNA matches, there's this little icon on the right that actually tells you there are triangulated segments. So you don't have to do the entire guesswork. When I'm viewing my match, Denise, and I'm viewing my brother as my shared DNA match, it already tells me that there are 5 triangulated segments, 5 segments that me, my brother, and Denise all share. So when you click it, it will open the chromosome browser for you, and it will automatically show you these segments. So the guesswork is eliminated. You just need to view the shared DNA matches, look for these clues, and look further into them. Okay, so we covered the chromosome browser and learned how shared DNA segments can help us, can point us to a common ancestor. But there's also the autoclusters. And autocluster actually is a tool that gives you DNA matches cluster. And what does it mean? This tool actually, it automatically organizes by a click of a button, it organizes your DNA matches into clusters, and these clusters are likely descended from common ancestors and belong to the same family branch. So this is an automatic tool to visualize family branches and visualize matches and people that you all are related through a certain common ancestors. So once you click on the autocluster tool, you just need to choose for which DNA kit you want to generate the tool for, in case you manage more than one kit. And then just click on generate. And once you do that, you will receive an email from MyHeritage with a file of the autocluster in it. Now, it's how it works. What does it mean to have autocluster? What are those groups that I'm talking about? These groups are groups of people that originated from your list of DNA matches. So we looked at your DNA matches, and the algorithm of the autocluster is taking each of your DNA matches and looking at the shared DNA matches you have in common. So this tool actually goes to your DNA matches list, looked at the shared DNA matches, and creates groups for you. And these are the groups of people who share a DNA match with one another. So we look at each DNA match, we look at their shared DNA matches, and we create these clusters. And our algorithm checks for each person that he matches enough people in this cluster. So each one of these boxes, the boxes, the red one, the orange one, the yellow one, and so on, they represent a certain family branch in your family, and you will be able to see the DNA matches names that by this algorithm we found to be under this branch. And we found it because the algorithm checks it, and it checks that these people matches enough people in the same branch, and then it says, okay, this match is relevant for this family branch. Okay. So we looked at all these tools, and now I want to do some sort of a summary because we went through a lot of stuffs. So the summary of tools to research your DNA matches. First, we have the newest CM Explainer. The CM Explainer predicts relationship and most recent common ancestor, the MRCAs, based on shared DNA and ages. And I suggest you to use that to identify more possible or less possible relationship of a DNA match to you. So this will be the first step when looking at the DNA matches. Look what the probabilities and the likely and less likely relationship we were able to find based on the shared DNA and ages. Next up, we saw the shared DNA matches. And the shared DNA matches in the review match page shows you the people that are related to both you and your DNA match. and use that to learn through which family side or which family branch your DNA match is related to you, as we saw in the earlier example. Next up, we have the chromosome browser, the one-to-one or one-to-many. The chromosome browser shows you shared DNA segments between you and another DNA match or matches. So use it to identify segments that were likely inherited from a single ancestor, in that case it's a single, and can help point you to the common ancestor with these matches. Autoclusters, as I mentioned, looks at your shared at your DNA matches and their shared DNA matches in all of them, and organize by a click of a button your DNA matches into clusters, and this cluster will help you to identify family branches that likely descended from common ancestor, from a ancestral couple. So I guarantee you that if you use wisely all these tools, and there are a lot of tools that we haven't got a chance to cover today, but I invite you to view other webinars and see how you can work with theory of family relativity or smart matches, DNA labels to help you organize your DNA matches. But I believe that these tools will help you get the most out of your DNA matches. And with that note, I will conclude our session today. And I want to thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any more questions, of course, I invite you to ask them during this webinar, but also visit the MyHeritage Help Center or the knowledge base. We have a lot of blogs and information there that can help you learn more about our features, but also about DNA. And thank you, everyone.
Gal, that was great. That was really interesting. It really kind of especially clarified for me how the whole CM explainer works. And I really like that diagram feature. That's a nice little touch, especially the way you can see the most likely ancestral relatives. So that's great.
I'm glad to hear.
We do have a number of questions, but I'm going to take back the screen. I'm going to run through some announcement and door prizes, and then I'll bring you back on just a couple minutes for the Q&A. So our next MyHeritage webinar is in 2 weeks. I think that makes it April 11th. And it's going to be called Deep Story, Your Visual Storytelling Tool by Jenna Helstein. And so be on the lookout for that. You can go to familytreewebinars.com and register for that so that you'll get the link and you'll be ready to watch it. Next up, we have our door prizes, and our first door prize is a 1-year MyHeritage Complete Plan. And what this does is, on the one side, it gives you the Premium Plus family site, so you have an unlimited capacity to build your family tree on MyHeritage. And it's got smart matching and tree consistency checker and all sorts of great super search. And then the other side of it is the access to the historical records, 13 billion historical records. So birth, marriage, and death records, census, military immigration. One of my favorites is the newspapers. They've got yearbooks, directories, all sorts of things that you need to learn about your ancestors. And let's see, we need to find one of our live audience members. And the person that this is going out to is Jeffrey Mulholland. So congratulations, Jeffrey. I will be contacting you later with instructions about how you can get your door prize. And our second prize is a MyHeritage DNA test kit. And of course, this is a perfect prize for today's webinar because we've been talking about DNA all day today. Now, Gal has been focusing on the DNA matches and the shared centimorgans and everything like that, and that is definitely a big part of what the DNA test kit is, but also the part that she didn't talk about today because it wasn't our topic, that's the ethnicity. So you would also get the ethnicity information, which would tell you what countries in the world that your ancestors came from. And that door prize is going to go out to, let's see, Doris Shapira. So congratulations, Doris. I will be sending emails to both Doris and Jeff with information about their prizes. All right, now I'm going to bring Gal back on here, and we have lots of questions. Okay, so our first question from Christina. She wants to know, will MyHeritage be adding the X data to our DNA results at some point?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, this is something we're definitely looking at it. I can tell you that even before the X DNA data, there's also the Y chromosome, the Y DNA data that we are looking into adding, which can provide more information about the paternal haplogroups. There's also the mitochondrial DNA data that we are looking to add for our female testers. So we are looking at all of that. I cannot say it will be happening very soon, but this is definitely something that is on our roadmap. Yeah.
Okay, great. Excellent. All right. Diane wants to know, is MyHeritage planning to create the equivalent of Ancestry's side view, where it shows you your parents, the maternal side and your paternal side?
We're not planning to create the equivalent. We're planning some other things, which are still in secret and in the works also, especially within our science team. So I cannot share more information about it. I'm sorry. I always like to give some teasers about our upcoming features, but we are looking into other features and things that you will be able to get from your DNA matches and understand more about the sides of the family and your family lines and branches. But it won't be the same as in Ancestry.
Yeah. So what you're saying, Gal, is you don't strive to do the equivalent of Ancestry. You're trying to do something better than Ancestry. That's what I'm hearing.
So, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, everything is good. Yeah, but we believe there are some things that we are able to develop using our science team that will help in identify matches and branches and sites in a different approach. Yeah.
Okay. And just like you did with the CM explainer. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's good. And of course, they can't put dates on that. So we just have to wait until they release it. Yeah. Janet is asking, I understand the probability of matches based on age, but what if your ages are close, but in fact it's a niece-aunt relationship? So, like say you have a large family, there's 10 or 12 kids, and the oldest child is, 15, 20 years older than the youngest child, and then you have these kind of niece-aunt relationships that Janet's talking about, where they're around the same age.
That's a very good question. So when we provide the probabilities in the CM explainer, it's actually a combination using, as I mentioned before, mathematical equations and probability factors. So we look at the distribution of the ages along with the shared DNA. So, and as you remember, there are a possible relationship, and we provide percentages. So obviously, if you have a niece that the age difference between both of you is very small, like 5 or 6 years, then the probability that we will give you for this person to be your niece will be smaller. It's not that it will be ruled out. We just look at the distribution of ages, but it will be smaller because in most cases, and this is exactly the thing about probability. Probability means that it's less likely for her to be your niece when the age difference is that close. But right. It not means that it's not this case. It's just less likely.
Okay, so the CM explainer is all about probability. So it's not drawing any information from the actual trees.
No, the CM explainer is only based on the amount of shared DNA and the ages and calculates probabilities and provide likelihoods,
Mm-hmm.
and it is not based on the information that of your family trees, which is a whole different thing. And when you have someone in your family trees and a confident relationship, then you will be able to see that in the DNA match card. Yeah,
And
we will indicate that.
what about hypothetically, say you had, 6 siblings and you tested all of their DNA. Each one had an account with their age listed so that the MyHeritage could see what age they are and see that they're all siblings. Would that impact it or no? Is it still just based on probability?
No, it's still based on the amount of DNA you share. So you have 6 siblings that were tested, and most likely all 6 of you, the amount of shared DNA will be according to the genetic range of siblings. Then we look at the ages, and then we look at the amount of shared DNA, and this is what the CM explainer returns.
Okay.
On the other hand, when you view DNA matches, when you have a DNA match that you link to your family tree, then you will be able to see on the side an indication saying the genealogical relationship, which is the relationship drawn from your tree. So
Okay.
it's a different indication on the DNA match cards for your convenience. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Charles wants to know, is the age difference graph available in a document or on the blog? So where you showed us like the grandparents and then the aunt, uncle, and then the half-siblings. It was like a chart showing the probable age difference, 60, 30, 10. Is that available somewhere? That graph?
If you go to the MyHeritage blogs, and there's a blog post about the CM explainer, we actually added there the distributions of the age difference for some of the relationship, not all, because again there are around 30 or 40 possible relationships that we looked at, but you will be able to see some of them there. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and I have found that blog post, so I'm going to put that in the chat. There we go, Charles. You can see that right now if you click on that link. Excellent. All right. Laura asks, once we know the relationship, is there a way to solidify it so we know we have figured out the relationship? I think what she means, can you change the relationship to or select the one that you know is the right one?
This one I can say it's in the roadmap and sooner than later.
Okay.
And yes, and this is something that will be available. Yeah.
Okay, so it's coming.
Yeah.
All right. All right. This question, I have my birth date entered in MyHeritage profile, but my age is not being used for the explainer comparisons. Does it not show the age for the person in question, like for your own DNA? Because my age doesn't show either.
So if you mean when you review a DNA match,
Yeah.
it's not shown, but it is calculated. And
Okay.
when you remember that I showed that below the table, we actually indicate based on what the probabilities were drawn. So if it was based on both of your ages, it will say it was based on both of your ages, and if it was based specifically on your age or only the other side age, we'll also indicate that. So look for that indication. It will indicate you based on what it was calculated.
Okay, and just for everyone else, if for some reason you need to change that birth date or it's not there or whatever, if you click on your name in the upper right corner of your MyHeritage screen and then choose My Profile, it'll show you your profile, and over on the left there's an Edit Profile thing, and that would let you change the date. Okay, Laura asks, what are the different colors when looking at possible relationships? On your screen, some were pink and some were blue. And she wants to know, does that mean they're related to both parents? So this is at about halfway through your presentation. I can't remember exactly where.
I have my the specific slide open.
You want me to switch back to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
The answer is kind of short. So, as you remember, we said that we want to help you pinpoint your research and pinpoint you to the specific relationship that you're looking at. So the purple ones are for full relationship. Full means that you share two common ancestors, an ancestral couple, like parents, first cousin, and all the half relationship are indicated in blue.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Nicholas wants to know, is it possible that someone with 4.37% or 326 centimorgans of shared DNA is not related to me?
Can you repeat the numbers?
4.3% or 326 centimorgans.
Every case on its own, but that's a relatively high number of centimorgans. So in that case, I would imagine that you are related somewhere between first cousin or parents' first cousin, or first cousin child, or maybe second cousin, depending on the extent of endogamy. I cannot say for sure, but from my experience, it sounds kind of high, and it will mean that you are related.
Yeah, definitely related.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Barbara asks, what do you do when you have a match that you don't know how they are related and they match both sides of your tree?
That's a very good question. And in that case, we have either a pedigree collapse or endogamy. And now, yeah.
Yeah. So what's something that somebody should do if they suspect they're in that situation?
So going back to the summary of the tools to use, so I think in that case, what will be helpful is to use DNA segments, which is under the chromosome browser, and to identify different segments in different people, like the match that you see that matches in both sides, but also the shared matches between both of you, and map these segments to potential common ancestor. And that would help you to draw some sort of a family tree to understand from which side they are related. The segments, I think, will be the most helpful here. Also, try to use the auto cluster. I mean, just by click of a button, it might be that in some cases, the algorithm will look at the amount of shared DNA matches that you both have, and will decide to put it in a certain family branch. It sometimes won't be able, but if it does, then it will help you understand on which family branch to look at. So I suggest to use the chromosome browser and the auto clusters for that.
So when she uses the chromosome browser and she triangulates with her dad, and then she triangulates with her mom, she could find out that she's triangulating on different chromosomes, right? For that same person with her parents, right?
Exactly, and that location, that it can be on different chromosomes, different positions, and that location will give you an indication of other matches that you need to look for in this specific location and understand the family line.
Okay, cool. That sounds doable. All right. All right, we already answered that question. Nancy wants to know, can you change the main person in the chromosome browser so you can compare various matches to each other? Or do you always have to be the person that the match shares with?
You don't have to be the person, but obviously you need to select one of the kids that you manage. So if you manage, for example, a kid of one of your parents or siblings or any other relatives, then you'll be able to change the selected kit and view the triangulated segments there. But you are not able to view triangulated segments between people and not with yourself,
Okay. And I think GEDmatch is the only place where you could possibly triangulate people that you're not connected to at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. Mary is asking, would the results from compared MyHeritage DNA tests show stronger, better results than it would from DNA results from imported information from other companies like Ancestry or 23andMe or FTDNA?
Generally, it will be better because we trust more on the SNPs that we are looking at. Not necessarily better, but again, when you import DNA files from other companies, then each company it looks at different location, and the DNA, this location are the SNPs. So each company looks at different SNPs, and hence the raw DNA data will be different. I mean, the matches in the matches in the database are MyHeritage, but again, the raw DNA data will be different, and the quality checks that we have and the SNPs that we are looking at, we trust more. So in general, I would say that MyHeritage kit is always more trusted, but it's not necessarily better, no.
All right. Can you go to the slide where you showed the DNA match with Denise from France?
Mm-hmm. One sec.
Yeah, that's it. All right. So Chuck's question is, he's noting that you share more DNA with Denise than your dad does.
Correct.
And
nice observation.
He has this situation, and he's saying, well, what do you do about this? How do you sort this out?
So that's a very good observation, and that actually leads me to suspect there's some sort of endogamy in the family, where I got other parts of DNA for my that matches Denise from the other side of my family, which is my mom. And in that case, then there's the option always to test people from the other side of the family, and look for and try to see how they are related to Denise. But again, I mean, it's not that I have a clear answer or clear technique, because every case on its own, but cases of endogamy or pedigree collapse are always tricky. So try to test more relatives and add them to the equation of shared matches and autocluster. Try to look at segments, and try to look at the segments, the triangulated segments between Denise. I will look at the triangulated segments between Denise, my dad, and myself, and see what the segments that we don't triangulate, and try to link them to other side of the family.
Okay. Piotr wants to know, is there a plan to change the minimal size of matches used in autocluster?
No such plans. I'm trying to understand the motivation behind this question.
I think sometimes people like to change, to raise it or lower it depending on whether they're dealing with endogamy or things like that. Mm-hmm. That's just a guess on my part. I was listening to a podcast and people were talking about that. But this is not based on firsthand experience of myself, full disclosure.
Yeah. So in Commerce and Browser, for example, you can select the threshold for the segments, the size of the segments that you want to look at. But in AutoCluster, we don't have such ability. But I haven't heard about it. I'm interested to know how we can help with that. So it's nothing that is on our plan, but you are more than welcome to contact our support team, and it will definitely come to me, so I'll be able to gain more information about it. Yeah.
Piotr, leave a message for support and tell her how you use that, so that they can, figure out how to, make it a better tool for you. Mm-hmm. And Rebecca's saying the same thing. She said, I would like to change AutoCluster's range to find more distant cousins and where they connect. So that's what she's saying. Okay. Doris is saying, if we have a DNA test with you, with MyHeritage, is it beneficial to add results we already have from Ancestry? Which I'm interpreting to mean having a MyHeritage test and also importing results from Ancestry. That's how I interpret that.
It could not hurt. It sometimes can be, we looked at different SNPs, and every raw DNA data that is produced either in MyHeritage or Ancestry can have some variations. It can be due to the specific run of the scanning machines in the lab or other parts. So it might be that you find other matches that can help you in this file. It might be not that close of a people. It might be on the lower thresholds of the amount of shared DNA, this more distant relatives, where this variation may be more sensitive, but it could not hurt. So I always suggest to do that.
All right. Let's see here. Carol wants to know if we have a webinar on tagging and labeling matches. I'm just going to take a little look here.
We definitely have.
Yeah, I feel like we do. I'm just not sure exactly what the webinar is called. If you go to familytreewebinars.com /MyHeritage, you will come to all the MyHeritage webinars. And that's where you're going. Oh, here it is. I have found it. Uri did that. Organizing. Oh, no, that's tagging photos. That's not it.
I think it should be by a webinar by Ron Sneer.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to find the name. I think it's called Introducing DNA Labels.
There we go. Oh, there it is. Yep. Okay, I can put the link in the chat for you as soon as my computer is a little slow. There we go. All right, that is coming your way. So everybody will have a link to that now. Let's see. Last question. Colleen is asking, could MyHeritage consider giving members the ability to share views of the DNA kits they manage like Ancestry does? So what that means is in your settings, you can say, okay, this person has access to either view, edit, manage my DNA kit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at the moment, there's a manager permission for each DNA kit and an assignee, which obviously the assignee of the kit is the person who got tested, and it can either be the manager or it can be someone else. There are some sort of privacy concerns regarding sharing DNA results. It's something that we are working on and we are looking into it, but there are a lot of privacy. I mean, keeping the DNA, your DNA information, the genetic information is our highest priority. Keeping it private and obligating to any standards. So it's not something that can be very quick because it will require to think about a very delicate solution. But it's certainly something that will be working on. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Well, Gal, this has been a great webinar. So much information. You really covered a lot today. I hope everybody has a much better idea about CM Explainer and some of the other tools that you talked about today. I certainly do. This was really helpful for me because this was my first time really getting a close look at CM Explainer, and it really helped me a lot. So I appreciate you spending your time here today.
Thank you. I enjoyed being here today. Thank you for having me.
And thanks to our audience for joining us today, and we hope we'll see you at the next MyHeritage webinar with Jenna Helstein. That's it. Talk to you all next time. Bye-bye.